All right, good morning and welcome to fourth Friday of Executive Book Review. We're really excited to see everybody here this morning, bright, shiny faces, coffee in place and everything ready to go. So we have an exciting program for you this morning. And we always like to start by talking about, who we are and what our mission is. And our mission is to enrich lives and communities by sharing knowledge, wisdom, and experience in a community of lifelong learners, which is you. So we welcome you and thank you for coming. So who remembers what our three-legged stool is? If you can't read it, then that is our promise. And our promise is that we're going to learn from the presenter, we're going to learn from one another, and we have an opportunity to meet fellow lifelong learners. So we'll have some time at the end of the program for us to just have some little conversation and everything so that you can chat with some of the other lifelong learners here. We always like to recognize anyone who is here for the very first time. So is there anyone that this is the first time they are attending Executive Book Review? Joseph, how are you this morning? Do you have your microphone working? No? Okay, well, we welcome you anyway, and we look forward to seeing you again.
I can speak a little bit for him. Joe and I are the same year in high school. We went to high school together in Atlanta, Georgia, and he's in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, Atlanta.
Yeah,
great.
He has a law practice. So.
Well, Joe, welcome. We're glad to have you. Look forward to seeing you many times in the future. Anyone else here for the very first time? Okay, I think that covers it. So what we like to do at the very beginning is we like to have a quick breakout session so that we can just get to know a couple of other people real quickly. And so we're going to break for 3 minutes or thereabouts. Let me just set this up so that we have that. All right. And we do have one extra question. So as you are introducing yourselves, just let everybody know if you have read any of the 4 Agreement books by Don Miguel Ruiz. So that will be kind of your bonus question. So enjoy, and we'll be back in about 4 minutes. Good morning, Laura. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Coming in very fuzzy. Good morning, Maggie. How are you this morning?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. We're in breakout session right now just to introduce ourselves and get to know someone else. So do you want to go first and just introduce yourself? And also the other question we had was, have you read any of the 4 Agreements books?
Hi. Yeah, sure. I can go first. My name is Maggie. So I live out in the Bernie area, Hill Country, Bernie. So I have come to the Executive Book Club for a few times. I really enjoyed it. I always find the views and the books that you guys chose are very mind stimulating. So no, I have not read any of the author's books.
Okay. Well, welcome again. Laura, how about you? You want to introduce yourself and let us know if you've read any of the Don Miguel Ruiz 4 Agreements books. Your microphone is not working. Okay. And Joe was introduced at the beginning. This is his first time here. His audio is not working, so But I know he's from Atlanta, Georgia, and he's a lawyer. And this is his first time joining us here at Executive Book Review. And Laura, I know you've been with us a few times, right?
Messing with my audio. Please let me know.
Laura, your
Sounds-
mic.
Sounds like you have a voice modulator and you're in disguise. So, all right. Well, we'll be, I think the breakout session is going to be done in, let me see, 60 seconds. So we've got a little bit of time. So is there anything particular, Maggie, that jumped out at you as far as the book that we're in right now?
No, not really. To be honest, I haven't really got a chance to really look into it. So I'm really looking forward to the review.
Oh, good. Morning, Dawn. How are you?
Good. I hit the wrong button. I wanted to stay in my room.
You wanted to stay in your room.
Yeah.
Well, now you can join us. How's
Yeah.
that? That's
There you
great.
go. That's always good.
How have you been?
Doing great. Doing
So
great.
what were you going to tell the room that?
No, we were just sharing about some of the books people were reading, and I was just
Oh.
I saw the thing pop up and I hit it and I hit the wrong button and boom, I was gone. So it's
Boy.
like magic. So yeah, we were just
Pretty
talking
quick.
about books.
Yeah.
One of the gentlemen was talking about he was reading the Donald Rumsfeld book,
Yeah.
audiobook.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's so many out there these days, you know.
Oh man.
Guilt pile is huge.
Oh, isn't that something?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get in the habit of just pick 10 pages a day or 15 pages a day and just keep moving through them and not try to read one in a week.
Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. I am posting the link to the handout. If you have not gotten it yet, you can get it there. And we are ready to go. I hope you had a great breakout session and got to meet somebody new today. And we are ready to go with our program. And we're very excited to have Marisa Ortiz joining us today to share her book, The Voice of Knowledge by Don Miguel Ruiz. For those of you who don't know Marisa, Marisa is a global learning consultant. And she actually consults with companies in a number of different countries. Her expertise is in talent development, customer solutions, and also cultural awareness. Something some of you may not know is that Marisa is fluent in 4 languages. And I'm very envious of that because I'm not even fluent in one that I'm sure of. But she's also a Gallup Certified strength coach. She's been a member of our faculty for a number of years now and is part of our board of directors. And so it gives me great pleasure to welcome Marisa Ortiz talking about the voice of knowledge. Take it away, Marisa.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter, for that amazing and generous introduction. And thank you for your claps. It's my honor and privilege to be back presenting this wonderful book, The Voice of Knowledge by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I have it right here from our one and only San Antonio Public Library. If you have it on hold, I'm the one who has kept it. And it's just a great opportunity to engage in this conversation. So yes, and it was my suggestion to ask in the introductory breakout room if some of you had read any of Don Miguel Ruiz books. The Four Agreements is the most popular of his books that was published back in 1997. And that year I remember well because it's the year that I moved from Mexico to the United States to start college. And of course, he has continued to publish many books. And this is the 4th book of Don Miguel that I get to review here in Executive Book Review. So I do recommend to either have in front of you the handout that Peter has graciously shared in the chat room. You can have the PDF just open in front of you, or if you want to print it out, you're welcome to do so, because I'll definitely be referring back to the document here and there to engage in this conversation. So Right there in the handout, I have, the voice of knowledge. And actually, the subtitle is A Practical Guide to Inner Peace. That's really what the Voice of Knowledge book is about. It is authored, of course, by Don Miguel, but also by a co-author, Miss Janet Mills, who was the co-author of several of Don Miguel's books. So I'm going to quickly read about the author, just to get an idea of who is Miguel or Don Miguel. He has published an international bestseller, The Four Agreements. His works like The Fifth Agreement and The Mastery of Love have been translated into 46 languages, with co-author Janet Mills, founder and president of Amber Allen Publishing, partnering during the 6 books of Toltec wisdom. Don Miguel was born in rural Mexico as one of 13 children. His mother was a healer woman, or what in Spanish we call curandera, and his grandfather was a shaman, or what we in not really in Spanish or in Nahuatl we would call a nahual. Distracted by modern life, Miguel chose to attend medical school and become a surgeon. A near death experience in the 70s changed his life. He has spent the past 3 decades guiding people to personal freedom through his profound insights regarding the nature of human reality. And he is listed as one of the Watkins 100 most spiritually influential living people in 2018. So that's a little bit of about Don Miguel, um, the author of the book. And the 3 benefits, what is it that we learned from this book? The number one, the first benefit that I think we learned from this book is to distinguish the story and the voice of knowledge or thinking. So the voice of knowledge really refers to the chatter that we constantly have in our heads on a regular basis, telling us everything that we know. That's why he calls it the voice of knowledge. What is it that you know? So it's a story about ourselves, is that chatter in which we are the protagonist of our own novela, and everybody else is a secondary character of that story. He calls it the voice because it's always talking to us. It's always telling us what we are, what we're not. It's always evaluating, judging. And that is what he refers to as a voice of knowledge. The second benefit, I think, that we learned from this book is to stop believing in others and in ourselves, and to use the Four Agreements as a favorite tool to transform the storyteller. So we'll get into the details of the book, but basically what the author suggests is for us to become so aware of that voice of knowledge and to become skeptical of it. And that is like the principal step to inner peace. And then the third benefit from this book I list as opening our spiritual eyes to the love reality all around us. And I won't steal the thunder because that's towards the end of the book. So the 3 applications that I personally found about the book that we can apply in our life or in our business. Number one is respect as one of the highest expressions of love. Number two, absorption in activity, creative expression to experience our true selves. And number three, enjoying our own presence, key to inner peace, self love, and just enjoying being with our own presence, in peace. So, the one thing about the voice of knowledge is in order to achieve inner peace, we must distinguish the voice of knowledge and unlearn the lies we believe are true so we can see with the eyes of love and live a life based on truth. So as you can see, as you can distinguish already just from this quick introduction to the author and the book, the a lot of the concepts and not a lot, all of the concepts and everything is based on Toltec tradition. So can I have a virtual heart or raise of hands, or someone in the chat if you know or have heard about Toltec culture or Toltec civilization before? Yes, we have Mariana Desiree, Peter, Laura Reza. Yes, Kristen with a heart. Yes, thank you. Yes. So I wanna share with you a screen very quickly that I was on Wednesday. I'm here in San Antonio, and I was on Wednesday taking my children to the Tobin Center, this amazing auditorium that we have, and I was showing them this mural of "Living in My Skin," an incredible work that we had a special event about it. And if you see above the mural, it says Toltec Apartments. I just thought it was so serendipitous that there is this apartment complex. It doesn't look new to me. And I think it's been there for quite some time. That is called Toltec Apartments. But and this is here in downtown San Antonio by Auditorium Circle. Coincidentally, that sign is above that mural, which I was showing to my children. But Toltec tradition or Toltec civilization it's pretty ancient, a pre-Columbian civilization. If you just like Google images on Toltec, um, you will notice, the art, not stereotypical, but the typical archaeological findings of Toltec culture or civilization that precedes the Aztec Empire. So anthropologists and archaeologists may have some disagreements on the true origins because it is so ancient. But I just wanted to share with you that and that it is important to just be reminded that Don Miguel bases his literature on Toltec tradition. So it's very indigenous, very Native American, and it may feel odd at certain times, mostly coming from a Judeo-Christian tradition. And if you consider yourself a person of faith, of Christian faith, just please heads up, this is not necessarily of Christian tradition. So basically, at the beginning of the book, the author explains a little bit about the Toltec, and he says thousands of years ago, known throughout southern Mexico as women and men of knowledge, masters or nahuals and students of Teotihuacan, the ancient city of pyramids outside Mexico City, the place where men become God. Toltec knowledge arises from the same essential unity of truth as all the sacred esoteric traditions found around the world. Though it is a religion, it honors all the spiritual masters who have taught on the earth. While it does embrace spirit, it is most accurately described as a way of life distinguished by the ready accessibility of happiness and love. So he starts with the very first chapter is called Adam and Eve, the story from a different point of view. And this chapter offers the concept of the tree of knowledge. He talks about a different perspective on the Adam and Eve story, Judeo-Christian story, of course. And he proposes that when Adam and Eve bite the apple from the tree of knowledge, they kind of bite into the first lies of what we call in our society social constructs. So throughout the book, the author uses the word lies, which I understand can be a very strong word for our own Western culture, to all the social constructs that we have built, all the agreements, as he calls in the four agreements, things such as an old dog cannot learn new tricks. Things like, if you're a woman, if you haven't been married by a certain age, something's wrong with you. Or if you're a man, if you haven't become a billionaire by a certain age, you're a failure. All those are social constructs. All those are agreements. He calls them. They are only true because we agree on them. But the reality is those social constructs have changed over time, and they change across cultures. That might be one of the reasons when we travel to different countries, we find so much peace because there are different social constructs in other parts of the world. So we kind of feel liberated from the social constructs and social pressures that we're receiving in our own society. So that's where he starts off with the Adam and Eve story and the alternative point of view of what the tree of knowledge really is. Then he talks about a conversation he had with his grandfather in chapter number 2. It's called A Visit with Grandfather. A simple truth is discovered. And he says, the first lie you believe is you are not. You are not the way you should be. You are not good enough. You are not perfect. The author proposes that the big and most important lie we learned, and we learned very, very young, is that we are not perfect, that we are not, and that nobody's perfect. So he, in the following chapter, which I think it's very important. So in my own handout, I couldn't help but include like 4 or 5 paragraphs on that chapter because I thought it was so important. It's called "The Lie of Our Imperfection: Childhood Memories Are Recalled." And basically he talks about how when we are born, when babies are born, babies don't have any knowledge. They don't know anything, yet they love and they trust. And we see babies and we see the perfection in them, and we can feel that pure love and connection with babies. And from babies they become toddlers, and then at some point we start indoctrinating them. We send them to daycare or send them to school. We start teaching them the social rules, right? Like what's right, what's wrong, what is to be a good boy, a good girl, what are the colors you should like because of your gender, what are the games you should play. All those things, we start indoctrinating our children at a very young age with knowledge. They start knowing things, and we send them to school to learn knowledge, acquire knowledge. And on top of that, he talks about television, and for me that's very important. I grew up in Mexico in the 80s and 90s, and everyone was watching the TV every day, the same TV shows. So our culture was heavily shaped by the shows that we watched. And in TV, as children, of course, and adults, we continue to do that, right? But as children, we watch TV, and television tells us what the way I should look, what I should like, what is to be, what's valuable in society, that boys need to be strong, and girls need to be nurturing. And, the media just keeps reinforcing all that knowledge, all those social constructs, all those agreements. And the big, most important lie, according to Don Miguel, is the lie of our imperfection. We learned as part of our knowledge that nobody's perfect. So that starts a process of all of us start looking to become perfect or achieve that image of perfection. And because we believe the lie that nobody's perfect, we're never pleased. We are never pleased with our own image of perfection. We can never get there. And that is what truly the root, in his opinion, the root of why we don't have inner peace is because we're always trying to get to that image of perfection and we are never pleased. So it causes emotional reactions in us, and of course not positive emotional reactions. So then in chapter number 4, he transitions to an experience that he had in the Sonoran Desert. Um, he calls it A Night in the Desert, an Encounter with the Infinite. It's a beautiful chapter. I strongly recommend to read it out loud if you can. But basically, he had an epiphany. He had a moment of deep awareness that he shares and explains in that chapter. And I think the most important concept that he talks about in that chapter is life creates what is real, and humans create a virtual reality, a story about what is real. We perceive images of light and we interpret, qualify, and judge what we perceive. This ongoing reflection in the mirror of our mind is what the Toltec call dreaming. The art of dreaming is the art of living. Everything we say and do is an expression of the force of life. The creation is ongoing, it is endless, it is happening in every moment. Again, a beautiful chapter that kind of elaborates on his awareness that he got that particular night, on how basically his claim, Don Miguel's claim, is that we are love. We're made of love. That miracle of that sperm and that egg connecting in that moment in time, and us becoming this person, coming to earth and becoming this person, is so miraculous. It's based on love. So Miguel claims that we are perfection, that love is perfection, and that we're able to see that perfection and how we are made of light, that we would be able to just let go of all those agreements, social constructs that create suffering in our lives. So then he transitions, very important, chapter 5, to the storyteller, exploring the characters in the story. And this is huge. This is an important, very important component of understanding the book. The storyteller is ourselves. We are a storyteller. So he talks about how when we're born, by the moment we're born, we join a story. We join the story of our parents, the story of our mother, of our father. We become, the firstborn, the secondborn, the thirdborn child of our parents, and we are indoctrinated into that story. But the difference is that in our own story, we are the protagonist, and everybody else is a secondary character. So, for example, with my mother, she's a secondary character of my story, but I am a second character in her own story. And we have in the story that we tell ourselves about our lives, what we have is it's just a story. It's just an interpretation. And we choose what to keep in our memories about the secondary characters. We choose what to keep, what perception, what image to keep on all the secondary characters of our story. And what Miguel says is not really true. What you think about the secondary characters in your story, all the people in your life, your family members, your loved ones, your co-workers, it's not true. You think your partner. He says, you think you know your mother. You really don't. You only know the story you tell yourself about them. And it's the same for them. They don't really know you. They just know the story they choose to tell themselves about you, their perception of you. So he talks about how when we understand the storyteller, when we understand this awareness, when we have this awareness, then we don't have to impose our own story, our own narrative to anybody else. So he says, for example, if my mother, coincidentally, he talks about his mother. He says, if my mother has a different narrative about my life and about who I am in her story, that's okay. I can choose to love her and accept her and enjoy her presence. I don't have to impose my own story and keep correcting her. Like, no, mom, that's not how it went. It happened like this. The reality is our stories don't match perfectly. They never do. Even when, even husband and wife, that have had a successful, amazing, loving marriage for many, many years, they have different perspectives on their own story and they don't match perfectly. So he talks about respect. He talks about respect is one of the greatest expressions of love. If other people try to write your story, it means they don't respect you. They consider that you're not a good artist, even though you were born to write your own story. The only way to change your story is to change what you believe about yourself. If you clean up the lies you believe about yourself, the lies you believe about everybody else will change. So for me, this was one of the biggest points of the book, was the concept of respect, the concept of I don't have to impose my own narrative and my own story on anybody else. And I don't need to accept anybody else's narrative of my story. We can respect each other and love each other with our slightly different stories that we have. So he says, don't waste your time taking anything personally. When other people talk to you, they are really talking to the secondary character in their story. Whatever people say about you is just a projection of their image of you. It has nothing to do with you. Whatever people say about you is just whatever people say of you, it's just a projection of their image of you. Humans are the storytellers of God. It is our nature to make up stories, to interpret everything we perceive. Without awareness, we give our personal power to the story, and the story writes itself. With awareness, we recover the control of our story, and we see that we are the authors. If we don't like our story, we change it. So those are the first 5 chapters of the book in a nutshell. Of course, if you engage, which I strongly recommend that you give this book an opportunity and actually have this conversation with Don Miguel. Of course, he elaborates a lot more and he keeps sharing a lot of Toltec concepts, but those are the high level. And before we move on, to the rest of the book, I just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity, thank you, Barbara, to debrief a little bit about this notion of the voice of knowledge. So the voice of knowledge is the thinking, is thinking. It's our constant chatter, our constant thoughts that are talking to us, that are telling us what we are, what we're not, constantly evaluating and judging everything, what is right, what is wrong, what is beautiful, what is ugly, what is correct, what is incorrect, what is success, what is failure. And according to Toltec tradition and the author is it's really not true. What's true is the sun and the moon and love and the stars and gravity in this planet. That is true. For the author, truth is there whether we believe it or not. But lies, as he says, they don't survive skepticism, right? So at this point, I would like to, if Peter, if you can help me get ready for our first breakout room. After the introductions, of course, our next breakout room, and have a quick conversation. So, Peter, would you please remind us what is the question that we would answer in this conversation during the breakout room?
Okay, I'm going to post it in the chat also so you
Yes.
can read it as I go. So the question is, can you distinguish your own voice of knowledge in your head? And how does that voice of knowledge that you have make you feel? So we're going to have about 8 minutes for this. And so we're going to put you in the breakout rooms and have a conversation on some of the great stuff that Marisa has shared with us. And we will see you in about 8 minutes. We good?
Thank you. Yes.
Start the. All right. And I think we have everybody back. So Marisa.
All right. Thank you, Peter, and thank you everyone for participating. I hope it was I hope it was a great breakout session, and I'll do my best so that we have another breakout session, and you get to continue the conversation. So yeah, so we talked about if we can distinguish the voice of knowledge in our heads and how does it make us feel. And at least in my breakout session, which was awesome, thank you, Laura and Jennifer. We talked about being aware, right? Being very intentional about, listening, distinguishing that voice of knowledge, as well as, how our stories don't match with the stories of our loved ones, even, as someone as close as our mother or our partners. We may ask about something that happened 2 3 years ago, and we may have very different versions of the same events. So thank you everyone for sharing. So to carry on, Don Miguel in chapter 6, which is called Inner Peace, Taming the Voice with Two Rules. This is really his proposal on his solution on what to do with this voice of knowledge that is, as he says, a tyrant many times. This voice of knowledge is telling us all these lies, such as you're fat, you're ugly, you're a failure. By this age, you should have done this. You know, oh, look at you. You're looking worse than last year. You haven't lost the weight. You haven't made so much money. I mean, that's what Miguel says. Those are lies. They're just lies. He says, what you call thinking is a voice of knowledge making up stories, telling you what you know, trying to make sense out of everything you don't know. The voice in your head is like a wild horse taking you wherever it wants to go. Once you tame the horse, you can ride it. And knowledge becomes a tool for communication that takes you where you want to go. So, this is his proposal. His proposal is just ride that horse, that voice of knowledge, get control over it, so that we need knowledge to communicate. Language is knowledge, right? Without language, we wouldn't be able to communicate. We need knowledge to do all the great things that we do. And in Toltec tradition, all of us humans are artists. The word Toltecatl means artisan, artesano, artist, artist of life. So according to Toltec tradition, everything we say and everything we do is an expression of art. even if in the social construct we don't consider it art. It is art, the art of living. So we can choose to manifest that art beautifully every single day, and use that knowledge for that expression of love and happiness in a way that brings joy to ourselves, most importantly, and therefore to everyone who shares life with us. So he says, you don't need internal dialogue. You can know without thinking. You can perceive with your feelings. Why waste energy telling yourself what you already know or worrying about what you don't know? When the voice in your head finally stops talking, you experience inner peace. So the two rules that he suggests is the solution for taming the liar in your head, he says, is stop believing what it tells you. Don't believe yourself and don't believe anybody else. So basically his solution is skepticism. So skepticism is not judgment. So this is important. And he elaborates quite a bit on this point. You can be skeptical without being judgmental. He is a huge proponent of learning to listen. Listen. Actually, that's the fifth agreement. It's be skeptical, but know how to listen. That is the fifth agreement. Um, it's just being skeptical is doubting our own voice of knowledge, and when the voice of knowledge of other people are expressed, and and we hear it, we listen to it. It's important to listen, to be on, to be aware, but it is also important to be skeptical, because he says the truth survives skepticism, and lies die with skepticism. Lies don't survive skepticism. Then he talks about, in chapter number 7, emotions are real. The voice of knowledge is not real. A very important chapter, mostly now that we finally have some more awareness about mental health, in post pandemic times. I think this chapter is crucial for those interested in mental health. The author proposes that emotions are real, and we have an emotional reaction to the voice of knowledge, to what we hear, either from others, to what we see, and to what we know. So it is important to distinguish: is this knowledge? Is this something that your voice of knowledge is yelling at you? And are you having an emotional reaction to that, right? So that we can become more aware of those emotions that come up in us, because our emotions come directly from our integrity. So he talks a lot about integrity of our spirit. Just like a baby's hungry and a baby's gonna cry, and that emotion is real. you know it's not a voice of knowledge. It's pure, it's real, because a need needs to be met, right? So even when we have a strong emotions, he dares to say, which I think is phenomenal, that emotions, there are no bad or good emotions. Even anger, even hate, those are real emotions. It's more about what is triggering, what is causing, what thoughts, what piece of knowledge is triggering this emotion. Our emotions are real. The voice of knowledge that makes us suffer is not. Our suffering is true, but the reason why we suffer may not be true at all. The emotions are the most important part of the story, because they are telling you how you're doing in your life. By following your emotions, you can change your circumstances. So when we notice ourselves having an emotion, an emotional reaction to something that we're telling ourselves, or something that we are being told, what we need to change is the lie. What we need to get rid of is the lie. So we stop feeling that emotion. But most definitely, he proposes not to repress our emotions, or not to judge ourselves like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. No, like, listen to your emotion. Why are you feeling like this? What thought is triggering this emotion? So very, very important chapter. Then in chapter 8, he talks about common sense, um, and blind faith, recovering our faith and free will. And this is a chapter where he elaborates on faith. Um, um, Very important. Our faith is not the voice of our story, and it's not our in our reasoning mind. Our faith is trapped in the structure of our knowledge, and only the truth can set it free. So he talks about how we need to be careful in the agreements in the pieces of knowledge we put our faith into, because we then bring them to life. When we believe, it's like eating something, a seed that will grow into a tree inside of us. And, he talks about the dangers of blind faith, of just, following something with blind faith, because it leads us nowhere, and bringing back common sense into our lives. Then in chapter number 9, very important chapter as well, but all of them are important. as I have this conversation, I realize I say that all the time. Transforming the storyteller in chapter number 9, the 4 agreements as favorite tools. And of course, the 4 agreements are: number 1, be impeccable with your word. And he elaborates on how this is the most important of the 4 agreements. Impeccable with the word. The word is so powerful. What we say to ourselves, and we don't have to vocalize it, it can be in our minds, becomes real because we co-create with a word. So being impeccable means without sin. So we must use a word in the direction of love and truth, right? So being impeccable, not saying things that don't are not constructive, not even to ourselves or to others, right? Be impeccable with the word. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. And he by now has elaborated quite a bit on this agreement on the previous chapters. On he thinks that taking things personally is complete waste of time and energy, because again, we need to be reminded we're only a secondary character in someone's story. So there is absolutely no value in taking anything personally that's being said or done. Agreement number 3, don't make assumptions. Very important to have the courage to ask questions so that we can understand what people are doing or saying without us making assumptions, because those assumptions are based on the story that we tell ourselves, which, as we know, is not necessarily true. And number 4, always do your best. That is my personal favorite agreement. Always do your best is the one that requires action. And what I love about the agreement of always doing our best, even if our best on a given day is not 100% because we're not feeling well, because something is happening that we just cannot give more. But regardless of the outcome, when we do our best, we have no regrets. If we can go back in time, when we do our best, we will do the same. So that's my personal favorite agreement. So he elaborates on the chapter on how each of the 4 agreements is a powerful tool to transform the story that we tell ourselves and transform the way we interact with others and how we listen to them, how we perceive them, and have, of course, meaningful and loving relationships. So he talks about a very interesting concept in Toltec tradition in this chapter called the dream of the second attention. So the dream of the second attention refers to finally having this awareness at some point in our lives of the story. The dream of the first attention is when we were children and we were indoctrinated by society to learn all this knowledge about all the things we had to learn to survive. And then as we mature and realize that it's just a story, the dream of the second attention is now having this awareness and choosing how to live our lives with awareness of the story and the voice of knowledge in our lives. So something really important to transform the story is, which I find very interesting, is when you are absorbed in what you're doing, your mind hardly speaks. This is about creative expression. I am personally a musician. I love music. I like to sing. I like to dance. I am a decent guitar player just to accompany myself. And no worries if you have to go. Thank you so much, Don. Thank you for joining. So what the author suggests is for us to spend more time in those activities in which we find ourselves absorbed and we express ourselves. You are expressing what you really are, and just the action makes it great. When there is an action, your mind has to have action, and that is an open invitation for the voice of knowledge to talk to you. The best moments of your life are when you are authentic, when you're being yourself. When you are in your creation and you're doing what you love to do, you become what you really are again. You're not thinking in that moment, you are expressing, and your emotions are coming out, and you feel great. So in my little handout, I put a little clip art of a girl with a microphone singing. But of course, we all have our different preferred activities of creative expression in which we're not thinking. So Don Miguel proposes for us to spend way more time doing those things so that we don't allow that space for the voice of knowledge to start talking to us and nagging us, with all that negative self-talk of all the things that we are and we are not. So at this point, I would like to have our second and last breakout. I think it'll be the same group. Am I correct, Peter? Is it going to be the same breakout room?
No, we're going to have probably different people.
Different people. Okay, great. So the question that I would like for us to talk about briefly is, what are some of those activities you like to do in which you can absorb yourself and be creative in your expression so that your voice of knowledge is not talking to you? If we can have a brief conversation about that and just come back to wrap up the review.
Okay, so I have posted that again in the chat, so you have that question. So Marisa, when I think of this, just to clarify in my own mind, I think of in sports when people say they are in the zone, and where you're not thinking about anything and everything seems to work in perfection. It's kind of, we're not thinking, we're just doing and experiencing and living the joy. So for me, that's kind of what I think about. All right, if we're ready, we're going to have 5 minutes in the room and then 60 seconds afterwards. So if you're ready, here we go. Okay, Marisa, we're all back.
All right, thank you so much. Well, I hope it was a very positive breakout room. I can see a lot of beautiful faces glowing after the breakout room. So I will make the assumption, even though I shouldn't, make the assumption that it was positive. So thank you. I mean, really, the last three chapters of the book, chapter number 10, Don Miguel proposes writing our story with love live as an ongoing romance. I love it. It's an incredible chapter. Please read it over a glass of wine. So basically, his point here is, when you enjoy the presence of yourself, you love yourself not because of the way you are, but because of what you are. The more you love yourself, the more you enjoy your life, and the more you enjoy the presence of everyone around you. Every activity of your life can become a ritual of love: eating, walking, talking, working, playing. When everything becomes a ritual of love, you are no longer thinking, you are feeling. Just to be alive makes you intensely happy. The only way to know love is to experience love, to have the courage to jump into the ocean of love and perceive it in its totality. So that's what the author proposes, is we can write our own story based on love. And the most important step is to enjoy our own presence. And every single activity, daily activity, becomes a ritual. We enjoy that coffee. He said the mantra every time you eat should be delicious. When you get into the shower, delicious shower. Oh, I love my shampoo. And you caress the cat. Oh, I got the best cat on the planet. You're the best cat. I love you. He talks about an exercise of challenging ourselves to say I love you 1,000 times in 1 week. So as you're watering your plants, kiss the flowers, tell them that you love them. Hug the tree, tell him that you love him. And in Spanish we have gender for everything. So for me, a tree is a he. But I know it's an it in English. Everything you touch when you wake up, and there's a living being, a plant, a pet, your child, your parent, your partner. Tell them, practice saying I love you 1,000 times in a given week. So that is chapter number 10. Again, an incredible chapter, life as an ongoing romance. Chapter 11, he elaborates on opening our spiritual eyes, a reality of love all around us. And of course, once we do that amazing exercise on a regular basis of realizing how there is so much love and beauty all around us, and just nature, just going outside. Yesterday, it rained beautifully. And, it was a balm to my soul, just observing the plants, listening to the birds, listening to my kids playing. All of that is allowing ourselves to open our spiritual eyes and see all the love that is constantly around us, and live life, and dream, choose to dream a beautiful dream based on love. And then the last chapter, number 12, the tree of life, the story comes full circle. He says, when you're born, you don't know what you are, but your body knows what it is and it knows what to do. This is silent knowledge, the knowledge that babies have, right? You can feel silent knowledge every time you breathe. You are an angel, and your life is your message. You can be a messenger of lies, fear, and destruction, or you can be a messenger of truth, love, and creation. But you cannot deliver lies and truth at the same time. Heaven is a story that we can create when we surrender to life and allow life to manifest without lies. Heaven is here, and it's available for everybody, but we need to have the eyes to perceive it. The truth is not the story. The truth is in the power that creates the story. The truth is the real you. It's your own integrity, and nobody can guide you to that place. Only you can take yourself there. When the voice of knowledge becomes the voice of integrity, you return to the truth, you return to love, you return to heaven, and live in happiness again. So, to at the end of the book, Don Miguel shares a couple of prayers, and I would like to read one of them, which is super brief. It's just going to take a couple of moments just to wrap it up here. So I'm just going to read it, and you're welcome to follow his suggestions. He says, please take a moment to close your eyes, open your heart, and feel the love that is all around you. I invite you to join me in special prayer to experience a communion with our Creator. Focus your attention on your lungs, as if only your lungs exist. Take a deep breath and feel the air as it fills your lungs. Notice the connection of love between the air and your lungs. Feel the pleasure when your lungs expand to fulfill the biggest need of the human body, to breathe. Take another deep breath. Then exhale and feel the pleasure again. Just to breathe is enough for us to always enjoy life. Feel the pleasure of being alive, the pleasure of being love. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was my humble attempt at reviewing this magnificent, little, simple book, but powerful, The Voice of Knowledge by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I thank you for the gift of your attention.
Thank you, Marisa. Let's give her a great hand. What an awesome presentation.
Thank you.
So wonderful, wonderful. Before we break up, there's several things that we want to cover real quick. First of all, as you're thinking about it over the next couple minutes, think about and put in chat, what is one thing you would add to your story as far as the executive book review events? What's one thing that could be added to our events that would make it just perfect for you? Because we like to get that feedback and knowledge from you as to what will make these events special for you. So just drop it in chat if you have a moment. Second thing is on August 6th, is Robin still here? Yes, she is. So Robin is going to be presenting Daniel Pink's book called When. So Robin, you want to give us a sneak preview of what we can expect on August 6th, that first Friday?
Sure, thank you. So Daniel Pink, yes, has a book called When, W-H-E-N. So we're going to find ways that we can time our day, time our month, time our lives, and make that a win, W-I-N, throughout our lives. And so I won't give you any peeks of the book yet, but I'll just let you know that we're going to talk about timing and how we can make our lives successful through considering the timing of each part of our life.
Thank you, Robin. I know Daniel has written many books and they're wonderful books, so that's exciting. And you will be presenting it, and that's even more exciting. So we're really looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Second thing to remember is that we've sent out several emails now about signing up on our new platform, Wild Apricot, for membership. Membership is free. So if you want to get notices and be able to register for our events, you really need to sign up for that, because our constant contact notifications have stopped as of this event. And so everything will be going out through Wild Apricot to members only. So be sure that you take the time and sign up for your membership if you've not already done so. And so with that, we come to a close of another executive book review, fourth Friday. Again, Marisa, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you to everybody for all your participation, because we have certainly learned from the presenter, haven't we? And we've learned from one another during our chats and everything else. And now it's time for us to have an opportunity to meet some fellow lifelong learners. So for those of you who need to leave and have other activities going on, feel free to drop off at this time. For the rest of you, hang around for about 15 minutes. We'll leave everything open so we can have some chats. And one thing you can ask is, you can ask Marisa and Mark how neat it was to meet Don Miguel Ruiz, because I do know that they had that opportunity, I think, last year.
Yeah.
So again, thank you very much. And that concludes our formal portion of this program.
Thank you. I am also responsible